Morning and welcome to Friday Morning Coffee. I appreciate your getting up and out of your jammies to be here. We're excited to have representatives of the Hall Dawson CASA here with us today. CASA is court appointed special advocates, and we are happy to have Tracy Varigny and Joy Green with us. Tracy is a volunteer recruitment and training coordinator, and Joy is a development specialist. Tracy, now she didn't tell me anything about you, so you'll have to do it yourself. But anyway, um, this is a second career according to Tracy, that because she worked in public and private schools for 25 years and she has been with CASA for 5 years. So this is her encore career. She loves children, and that's what brought her to CASA. As she said, it's her home away from home. So please welcome Joy and Tracy.
I'm live now. Okay. Well, thank you, Mary Bob.
Let me say,
Yes.
one more thing, John, I'm sorry. There's a raffle for a couple of items, and if you did not fill out one of the slips of paper with your usher, just raise your hand and they'll bring you one. Thank you.
Well, I want to start this morning by saying thank you to Mary Bob for this opportunity, and as well as if you have your a team of that puts together this Friday morning coffee hour. I had the privilege of being here. I think it was in the spring when you all did a volunteer fair. I had the privilege of being here and meeting many of the wonderful residents here, and just appreciate again this opportunity. Appreciate anybody who's with us today who supports our program in a variety of ways. And just grateful to share our story. We'll give a brief overview of what we do and how we do it and why we do it. And then we'll have some time at the end to take any questions. And so I'm not used to this fancy getup, so you'll have to be patient with me. And I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about our mission. Our mission is to ensure that any child who is abused or neglected and is experiencing foster care has the right to a safe place and a permanent home. And when we say that statement, it sounds pretty easy in terms of, okay, that's what you do. It's how we do it and why we do it, that there's a lot of work that goes into it. We are the only party to a case, a dependency case, that has a seat at the table that is not paid to be there. And there's a lot of important people that are part of this process, and we'll talk about a few of them, and we need them. We need to do this work alongside them, but we are unique in terms of what the work is that we do and how we advocate for really these children who live in our community who are very, very vulnerable. So we often get asked, as Mary Bob said, we are court-appointed special advocates, and what exactly are court-appointed special advocates? What I can tell you is it can be a challenging job. It can be most rewarding. We will give you everything you need to do to be able to do this work. If you have compassion, if you have an open heart, if you have a love for children, we can give you all the tools that you need to do this work. You don't have to be an educator. You don't have to be a nurse. You don't have to understand the legal system. It can be anyone who is willing to open their hearts, allow us to give you some of the tools, and give you people and support in a community who will walk alongside you to do this work. So it doesn't take any special skill set. We will give you everything you need. In addition to that, again, specially trained, we have an extensive training program. We're getting ready to kick off what we call our February cohort in the middle of February to be able to serve 100% of the children in our community who need us. We have several trainings throughout the year so that we can get people to our doorstep and increase our CASA family to be able to go out there and do the good work. You're appointed by the courts to speak up, to advocate for the best interests of a child, which is very different. If there's any attorneys in the room or former attorneys, very important. Parents have an attorney, children have an attorney. When you have a child who has an attorney, their attorney must act based on what their client wants, and that's important. But anybody who has children or worked with children know that what children often want and what they need can be very, very different. And that's where CASA comes in. As a CASA volunteer, it's important to know what a child wants. It's very important. But what's most important is to know what's in their best interest. And sometimes that's not going home right away. Sometimes that's giving mom and dad the time to do the things that they need to do. And so it's very important that we have all of these people that have a seat at the table, but our work comes from what is in the best interest of a child. What research will show, what we know as we do this work, is even under the most horrific circumstances, children want to go home. They want to be with their birth family. It's just the nature of what children want. They want that forever family. They want to be with their birth family. And sometimes that's not in their best interest. Compassionate adults will provide you with everything that you need. I promise you that. We build in a sense of community within our program, and I'll touch on that again toward the end. But all of our CASA volunteers are partnered with an advocate supervisor. And I always say they become your coach. I get to do the training and talk about the content. I don't do the hard work. The supervisors are partnered with all of our volunteers, and they take what you learned in training and help you apply it. They become your coach. I want to talk a little bit about our staff and our story. This is one of our favorite pictures. It was a very cold day, though, I will tell you, as we stood out there to take this picture. But we were talking this past week just about our backgrounds and what we've done, in our careers. And for some people, this is a first career. For me, it's my encore career. But collectively, we have over 154 years of work in the child welfare business. We have educators. We have several staff members who have worked for DFACS. We have people that have worked in housing. We have people that have worked in the school system. We have a wide variety of backgrounds on our team. And what that allows us to do is there very rarely is a question or a resource or something that comes across our desk that we can't handle internally and say, hang on, let me call Joy, or let me call Kayla, or hang on, because if I don't know, somebody else will know. And it kind of gave us a little bit of some chill bumps, because we're like 154 years of experience of working with children in some capacity. So we are really proud of our team and the work that we do, and again, in creating a community of support for our CASA volunteers. Oh, I'll back up for a minute and share. Oops, maybe I need to go forward. Nope, I'm screwed it up already. Let me go forward. Back to the picture, and what I will also share with you is last year, we celebrated 35 years of advocacy work in Hall and Dawson County. How many people have heard of our program before? Okay, not bad. That's more than what we usually get in a room. Usually when Joy and I take our show on the road, a lot of people haven't heard of our program. And so last year we spent a lot of time in the community talking about 35 years of advocacy work. And we're super excited that we have roots in the community, that we have served thousands of children over those 35 years, and we continue to be able to do that. We can't continue to do it without CASA volunteers and without financial support from our community as well. So what is our challenge? Our challenge is an overburdened system. We know that there were over 16,000 children in the state of Georgia in the foster care system. 16,000. We'll talk about how many of those children we served in our program here shortly. But if you think about that and the challenges that these children have throughout their journey through the child welfare system, which is typically 12 to 18 months. And we say typically, that's an average. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. And I'll tell you what happens when a child has a CASA volunteer and how that is an advantage to them here again shortly. But 18 to 24 months a child will spend in foster care. And during that time, it is not unlikely that they will change homes up to 5 times. So think about it if you've ever moved. And, you pack up your things, you kind of purge a little bit, you talk with your neighbors, your family knows where you're going. For these children, it could be a move in the middle of the night. It could be 5 different schools over that period of time. They never really get to make, great friends or participate in extracurricular activities. Or they get started on a team sport or a club and they have to just up and move away. So So 5 times in that short period of time. Now what I'll tell you is sometimes it's for good reason. Sometimes there's a family member that is found and those children are able to go and live with a family member, and that is a good move. Sometimes a child may have a medical need or an educational need, and the move is a good thing. But that doesn't mean in that child's world that that's not another disruption. It's another transition. Sometimes it's another strange bed that they're sleeping in. What I will tell you is that we talk a lot about consistency in our work, because often during that time, the CASA volunteer is that consistent adult in that child's life during each of those transitions. It could be a different social worker, DFACS worker, different teachers, but one consistent adult, and that's their CASA volunteer. So I talked about our challenges, the burden system, but here's the brighter future, and I know this is kind of tiny, and we have some things that we'll hand out before we leave today. But a child with a CASA volunteer, you have that consistent adult, they are more likely to cross the graduation stage and graduate high school. Now, as a former educator, that always gives me a little bit of, some chill bumps, and I get a little emotional because on average, the graduation rate for children in foster care is about 16%. Ebbs and flows a little bit. They are more likely to cross that graduation stage, go on to some post-secondary education, or have a trade, or go into the workforce, or become a successful adult if they have that CASA volunteer with them. And our hope is those successful adults, they become part of our community, and they pay it forward. They're half as likely to return to the foster care system. They are more likely to receive services. What we talk about at CASA and during our training is to say that we are not a service provider. So the easiest example I can say is, let's say we have a child and their CASA volunteer finds out that that child needs glasses. CASA isn't going to buy the glasses. They're not going to put the child in their car and take them to the doctor's appointment. We all want to, but we don't. We have to have some boundaries there. But what we do is first, we ensure that the courts know that that child needs glasses. And somebody, typically DFACS or the other organizations involved, need to be put on notice that that child needs glasses. Now, what a CASA volunteer can do is help connect the family with the resources. Maybe they help the placement make that doctor's appointment. Maybe they're like, you know what, we know that there's a Lions Club here in Dawson County. Let's make sure we connect you because we can get you some glasses through that organization. And when I talk about not being a service provider, it's to say that our service, our work, is our advocacy. We're not focused on providing all the things that the family needs. We're focused on who do we need to tell that needs to know that these are the things the children need, and that's the court. And it's the judge who can direct all the different people to do the things that need to be done. What our judges will tell us, and I know I met a former judge in the room, what our judges will tell us is that they can make a more informed decision when they have a child that has a CASA volunteer. And they always come and they conduct our swearing ceremonies, and the judges always say, never assume that just because they sit on a bench that they have all the information, because they often don't. That it's often the CASA court report that our CASA volunteers submit to the courts that gives them more insight as to what is going on in that child or that children's life. And so they're more likely to get those resources. They're more likely to reach permanency. Permanency meaning a forever home. We start our cases with reunification in mind. That is our goal. That's where we start. We know that if children can go home to their birth family, that's where they're going to thrive. Unfortunately, that's not always in the child's best interest. Sometimes the abuse or neglect is such that reunification is taken off the table. Sometimes mom and dad, despite trying to do the things that they need to do, they just can't do it, and their rights are terminated, and we look at adoption, or we look at what's called guardianship. We begin with reunification, but the reality of it is reunification is not always feasible. But what we know is children will reach permanency, whether that's reunification, adoption, guardianship, in a shorter period of time if they have a CASA volunteer. It's less time in the system. trying to think what did I miss there. They also spend less time in court because they have all of these people coming together to ensure that all the things are going in the right direction. So I want to talk a little bit about our impact. We're excited. We're digging through all of our data, and we're waiting for some data to come in locally and from the state. But I want to talk a little bit about permanency because that is what our work is all about, making sure that these children can get to a place where they have a permanent home, a forever home. We served over 300 children in our program last year. There were over 400 children experiencing foster care in Hall and Dawson County, and we simply could not serve them all. Question I get asked is why? We simply do not have enough volunteers. We simply don't have enough volunteers to serve all the children that need a CASA volunteer. So there are cases that come into our office that we just simply can't serve. But out of the over 300 children that we served, 115 reached permanency last year. And out of the 115, 100 out of 115 children that we served, that cases closed, 93 of them reached permanency. Excited to share that 45 of those children were reunified with their parents. 35 were adopted. 10 were placed in legal guardianship, and that means that they're in the legal guardianship of adults that care for them, and their parents' rights have not been terminated. So maybe mom and dad can't really raise the children, but they could still be involved in the children's life. And then 3 of those children remained with the parent while receiving services. And what that means is we do have a few cases where the children and the family is placed under what's called a safety plan. So the children can remain in the home, and the courts are like, listen, you can keep your children under certain guidelines. And some of the cases that we do get, and they're usually a special request from the judge, we will serve some of the family preservation cases. We'd like to be able to do more, but we simply do not have enough CASA volunteers. But out of the 3 cases that we did serve, or out of the few cases that we did serve, 3 of those cases did close and reached permanency. So we're very, very excited to share that information. More so, what I will share with you is, I believe it's a little over 90% of these cases that closed and reached permanency had one consistent CASA throughout the entire case. We talk, again, a lot about consistency and the importance of not having another transition and another change. And that's the power of the work that we do. When we have a CASA volunteer that takes a case and they stay with that case from start to finish, meaning from the onset until we reach permanency, that's one less disruption in a child's life. So what is our vision? Right now, we are getting ready to start a new training cohort in February. We wrapped up year 2024 with 103 CASA volunteers. We served over 300 children in our program, but there are many more children out there in our community's most vulnerable children who do not have a CASA volunteer. And that's simply because we don't have enough CASA volunteers. And our goal this year is to serve every single one of those children that need a CASA. We serve usually, and it ebbs and flows a little bit, we're usually between 60 and 65% of serving all of the children, and that's with both counties combined. Again, it's probably a little hard to see here, but I just want to walk through, we talk about advocating. We talk about what we do. And I'm a former teacher, so I love graphics. I love to break it down and kind of make it manageable. But what I always tell people who are interested in our program is we ask you to learn about the child. You do a lot of fact gathering. You talk with the schools, you talk with their physicians, you talk with other adults in their life. You learn about what their life is like. You engage with the different adults in the child's life, and sometimes that involves the family as well. What you do is you take all of that information. We ask that you visit with the child 1 hour per month. That's it, 1 hour per month. What I'll tell you is we have a lot of CASA volunteers that do more. I always say, but you can't do less. We can do more, but we also don't want to be intrusive. These are families that have a lot of different people coming and going in their life, so it's important to kind of find that balance, and that's going to be different from each case. But we ask you to engage. Those visitations are very important because you want to be that consistent adult that keeps showing up. I'll tell you just a little quick story. One of our CASA volunteers, and I'll try not to get teary, one of our CASA volunteers had been on a case for, I think it was a little over a year. And the child had changed homes several times and had changed schools several times. And something fell through the system and she just lost, somebody lost a contact and she's like, we're getting ready for a hearing, and fast forward. She showed up at the school. And that little girl said to her in the conference room when she was there, I knew you would find me. I knew you would find me. That's called consistency. That's what's at the core of the work that we do in the CASA volunteers. That child had changed another home. She had to start another school, and just on a whim, the CASA volunteer said, what do I have to lose? I'm going to show up at the school that I think she might be at, and she found her. And that little girl said, I knew you would find me. So that's engaging. That's being that consistent adult. You take all of your information that you gather by visiting with the child and talking with the different people involved in the child's life, and you make recommendations to the court. Now, I will tell you that we are not part of the removal process. How am I doing on time? Okay, because I'll keep talking. That's the teacher in me. And I love CASA. And then I lost my train of thought. Where was I going, Joy? Recommendations to the court, yes. The power of your court report is this. That's where you put all the information that you gather and you make recommendations so that the judge can make a decision and make a ruling. We are not part of the removal process. So we are not involved in that part of the process. We come in once the children have been removed from the home, unless it's a family preservation case, and those are kind of one-offs. That's important. Because what happens at removal is the courts come in and say to mom and dad, you have to do X, Y, and Z if you want your children back. It's called a case plan. And while mom and dad are hopefully doing X, Y, and Z, your child will have a CASA volunteer that will ensure that their best interest is always in front of the judge. Our relationship as volunteers with the birth family comes a lot later in the case because it's important to know whether they're not making progress or not making progress, because that's going to impact your recommendations to the court. Should the children have visitations? Should they be supervised? Should they move to overnight? That's going to depend on whether or not mom and dad are doing all the things that they need to do. So those recommendations are very powerful. We talk a lot about community in our program, not only in our little CASA family, but community at large, community like this. It's important that we understand that our work could not be done in isolation, so we collaborate with a lot of people in our community. We collaborate with DFACs. Doesn't mean we're always on the same page, and that's okay, because that's the power of the work that we do. We collaborate with the attorneys that have a seat at the table. Doesn't mean we always agree. That's okay. That's the power of the work that we do. And then it's all about our report. It's all about that consistency, and that's what our advocacy work is all about. So we have a call to action. I'm excited that we're here today because Joy and I were talking on the way over. This kicks off kind of our road show for 2025, so we get to kind of go through all of this with you all and continue to share our story with the community. But we have a few call to actions. Our greatest need is volunteers. Second to that, and Joy's going to talk about that, is that's being able to support our program in other ways. And then we always close with sharing our story, and I'll talk a little bit about that shortly. I always say I have an easy job. I get to talk about CASA, I get to be in the community. I'm a teacher at heart, and so I'm in charge of our training. It is important that you hear from the people who are doing the hard work. And so what we're going to share with you now is a volunteer video so that you can hear from their voice why they choose to do this work and how it has changed them.
I think being a CASA volunteer is probably the best volunteer job I've ever had. because it's very rewarding working with students, youth that for whatever reason don't have their parents as a part of their life right now, or if they do, it's in a limited capacity. So I think being at CASA, we're able to level the playing field for these youth, and that's so important because they need resources. They need people who are there for them.
I became a CASA as a result of someone sharing their experiences and just basically introducing the whole concept. And then I had a good friend who thought my time in retirement would be well spent because she was on the board with CASA, and like I said, just filled me in. And it has definitely been a very good match.
My experience as a CASA has been the most rewarding experience that I've ever had in my life.
And after I retired, I needed something that I still needed to feel some type of accomplishment, something that I was actually finishing. I could feel useful for some people. And when I went and looked at different volunteer potentials, the CASA kind of stuck out of my mind because I raised 4 kids. I have 5 grandkids. I did a lot of coaching when I was younger with my kids, and I really felt a connection to children. I felt like I could actually help and I could be useful. After you're retired, you still want to be useful, and I think I found my niche with CASA.
Well, when I first started as a CASA volunteer, I was worried about what all I didn't know. And I have found that the supervisors and everyone is so available to help and give guidance and answer questions that really didn't need to be a worry of mine, because you've got a big support group, a lot of people working with you.
It's changed me a lot. I've learned a lot about our system that I didn't know, and the need that is out there to help these children and to be involved and to be a mentor and just to be a shoulder to cry on.
Being at CASA has enriched my life because every time I go to see these children, again, maybe I'm the only person that they see consistently, they always are so happy and so thankful. And sometimes they'll say, I haven't seen you in so long. It's been 3 weeks. So being able to light that children's world up for a little bit.
It's not an easy job if you're looking for an easy job. The learning curve is steep. A lot of things to learn about the court system, about rehab, about addiction, about abuse. Some of the things that you might not have wanted to know, but these things can be used to help people better themselves, to help people feel more secure in their lives.
Since becoming a CASA volunteer, it has changed me a lot. I have learned so much about the laws, about children, about need. It's changed me internally, and I feel like I'm making a huge difference for children.
We get together for just social events, and it's an opportunity for us in a relaxed environment to just enjoy each other and get to know the other CASAs around. And through networking, we can find other opportunities, how we can help our children.
Usually when you become a CASA volunteer, you are investing however long it takes for the family to be successful. And sometimes that takes years. And through the process, you may be the only person that's involved the whole time, because defects workers change, sometimes child attorneys change. Just knowing that you're there to develop a relationship with the family.
I don't have children, so when I work with these children, it's like I have a child in my life. And that's something I just really enjoy.
I really just would like to say to anybody that would listen that if you have a few hours, you can really make a difference in a child's life, and it's very rewarding. You'll get more out of it than you put in, trust me.
That's our CASA family. they tell our story way better than I can tell the story. Joy's going to share a little bit of other ways that you can support our program, and then we'll wrap up for today.
Thank you, Mary Bob. Am I on? Okay, great. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. Tracy does such a great job of talking about the work and the important volunteers that do the work. And I love that video because I think it is a great representative of the variety of people that choose to do this important work. I hope that maybe there are a couple of people in this room that could see themselves in this role, at least to have some conversation about it. But as I was talking to my friend Starlet wouldn't mind me sharing this. She's a former CASA volunteer. And a dear friend to our organization, but she was saying, you know, I can't do that anymore. I'm not at a place in my life where I can do that. And I said, you know, we certainly understand that. It's not everybody, it's for the right season. But everyone in this building, everyone in this community has a role to play in helping our children be a success. There are ways that everyone can help, and I hope that you will consider that. You know, as when I came to CASA 4.5 years ago, our work was largely funded by grants. And as you may know, grant funding is precarious. You can't really depend on it. So we have, as an organization, made the decision that we need to really be out in the community telling the story of what we do, of the importance of our work, and asking people who care about children, who care about our community, to come alongside us in the ways that you can. And the work that we do, it's not, as Tracy said, we're not buying things for children. We're not. That's not our role. Our role is to recruit, train, and support volunteers. That means we have, as Tracy mentioned, supervisors that work with each of our volunteers. We have a responsibility to bring in the funding to help enable volunteers to do the important work that is done. So I would just ask you to consider how you might partner with us. We have supporters who, you know, support at different levels, and it takes all of us coming together to do that, to provide for the children that are going to grow up in this community, and they're going to be members of this community. They're going to be healthy or not. They're going to have their own families that they're going to raise, and they're going to raise healthy children or not. And we all have the opportunity to impact the future of our children, because they're our children. And we all have an opportunity to have an impact on that. So I would just encourage you to think about it. We've got a video, you may recognize a face or two in this video, that talks about, how we all do have a role to play.
Now is the time to be a champion for our kids.
Hundreds of kids experience foster care in our community each year.
We believe that children experiencing foster care are not the state's children, are not the government's children.
They are our children.
They are our children. And they are critical to the success and the well-being of our community.
Our children are our future.
Foster care is a frightening, uncertain, and painful time.
A CASA, a court-appointed special advocate, is a relentless advocate for a child in foster care.
A CASA volunteer is that one consistent adult
who walks beside a child.
Who walks beside a child experiencing foster care,
helping them close the gap between a challenging present
and a promising future.
A CASA volunteer is someone from their hometown who will walk with them through their foster care experience,
no matter what happens.
Now is the time to be a champion for a child experiencing foster care.
Everyone can be part of the success of a child.
Every child is one important adult away from being a successful child.
Help us ensure every child experienced in foster care has a CASA volunteer.
Now is the time to be a champion for our kids.
Now is the time to invest in our future with a gift to CASA.
With a gift to CASA.
Ahora es el momento para invertir en el futuro con un regalo para casa.
Now is the time to invest in our future with a gift to CASA.
I just want to reiterate what Joy said, that we are very appreciative to be here today. We take every opportunity. We'll talk to 2 people, we'll talk to 500 people, we'll talk to 30 people. Any opportunity that we can be in the community to just talk about our story. We talk a lot about how we change a child's story. We're talking a lot this year to people about how you can be an author of hope and support our program in any way that you can. I'll finish by saying one of the greatest gifts that you can give us, and only takes a little bit of time, is to share our story. Talk about CASA. Hey, I heard these great people, they were great, they talked all about CASA. You should, you go to their website, learn a little bit about what they do. Share our story. That can be one of the greatest gifts, and it only costs you time. And with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Mary Bob, again. I'm glad our path crossed when I was here at that volunteer fair. Starlet, thank you for all the work that you did to get us where we are today. You were part of that 35 years, and we appreciate that, and continue to support our program. And anybody else who may support our program or think about doing it, help us get to the next 35 years and serve every child in our community. Thank you. And I do love questions because I do love to chitty chat. Are there any questions? I can't say that I'm always going to have the answer, but Joy's my backup.
We're hearing an awful lot today from the changes that are coming in the lives of a whole bunch of people who are not in this country legally. There are a lot of kids involved in this. We see the pictures. It seems to be quite real. Do you have any connection or interest or information to share with us on the impact of what you see coming?
That's a good question. Whew, that's a good question, very deep. What I will say to you is this. We try to serve any child in our community who comes into foster care. And that may mean that they're here legally or illegally. And what I can tell you from our program standpoint is that our advocacy work does not change. That child gets 100% of what we do for any child. It may pose other challenges, and the work that we do, then we look for resources. Do we need to work with the immigration department? Do we need to work with the local, let's say, Hispanic Alliance? Or do we need to work with other organizations because that child has every right in our eyes to a safe and permanent home? Do I have insight on a lot of the other things? Probably some personal opinions that wouldn't be appropriate for me to share. But our program does not discriminate. If that child needs a CASA volunteer, we see that child as a child experiencing foster care due to abuse or neglect. And it doesn't matter where they came from. So it probably doesn't give you the answer that you want, but I'm proud to say that child deserves every right that every other child has, whether they were born here or not.
Thank you. Where do you usually meet with the child?
Oh, good question. I should have brought my little sign. It depends. I say that a lot during training. What I will tell you is that when our CASAs, I'll back up and say our CASA volunteers choose their cases. So we don't assign cases. We get a limited amount of information into our office and then we put that out to our CASA volunteers. Couple reasons. We all have a story. We all have a comfort level. I would prefer older children because I was a high school, middle school person. I wouldn't know what to do with the little ones. We have some volunteers that would prefer the little children. We have some volunteers that want to work with sibling groups. What we do ask is that very first visit, when you choose your case, is in the home where the child is placed. We want another set of eyes and ears in that home. Yes, that home has been vetted by DFACS, But it could have been 2 months ago. It could have been 6 months ago. Or it could have been yesterday. But maybe the child is having some difficulty transitioning. Or maybe there's something that placement family needs that we can say, okay, we've got a person or we've got a resource. Let's connect you. Let's collaborate. After that, those 1-hour visits that follow that, it can be a variety of things. We have some of our CASA volunteers that will go on visits with the defects case managers, which is that collaboration piece. We have some CASA volunteers that may go to the schools. It's important to see the children in different environments. Now, I will tell you, middle school and high school children don't want you rolling up with lunch or eating lunch with them. They want the lunch, but they don't want you to stick around. But we have a great working relationship with our school systems. You may go to an extracurricular activity. Maybe that child is a piano recital, or they're in a ballet production, or they're playing football. So it's going to depend. As long as it's that 1 hour a month, you can be creative and be consistent. But that's a great question. Any other questions?
Is mine on? Well, when you talked about a safety plan, was anyone else reminded of the case where the child walked to the store, this is North Georgia, and now the mother must sign a safety plan or lose the child. She may be still in a court case, I don't know. I grew up as sort of a free-range child, so I know things have changed, but I really thought that was a little shocking. Is this something that happens often?
That's a good question, Mary Bob, and what I will say is I don't know. Like I shared with you, we have a lot of cases in Hall and Dawson County. Well, we have several, I should say. I don't know the exact number, where they're called family preservation cases. We would love to serve all of those cases. We just simply can't. What we do is if there's a special request from a judge, then we're like, okay, let's see if we can connect a CASA volunteer with that family. So our program's probably not as familiar with the data behind that. I think that, those of us of a certain age did grow up in a different world. I would cross 2 highways to go and get my mother, a pack of cigarettes way back in the day. Now, that really probably would require a safety plan. I think our world is ever changing. So what I would say is in a world that's ever changing, that makes our work even that much more important. Parents have rights. And, part of our work is ensuring that parents have the right to get their children back if they do all the things that they need to do. That's that reunification piece. Our work is important too because sometimes parents they don't do all the things that they need to do. Or their abuse or neglect of that child or children that they had was such that reunification's taken off the table. So what I would say is in the world that we live in now, our work is even more important than it was probably when we were all growing up.
Any other questions? Well, let's have a drawing for our door prizes. Here comes.
Almost forgot.
Yes, and here comes Vanna with the with the box.
And while we're doing that, I'll let you know that our office is located right off the square in Gainesville. We do serve Hall and Dawson County, and that has to do with the jurisdictions of the court system. Typically, it's about 20% Dawson County, 80% Hall County, obviously with the demographics and the population. All right, we have a drawing.
And the winner is Janet Patterson. All right. Okay. I'm not looking.
This is for a lovely honey basket. It's local honey from McGraw Farms and a little beehive candle. So.
And Pat Johnson is the winner. Congratulations. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and to be here and tell us about CASA.
And what I would just say is you're wonderful ushers today. On your way out, if you'd like to take what is our annual impact report, we're working on, Joy's busy pulling in all the information for 2024, but this will give you a glimpse into our world, a lot more of the information on people who support us financially and our volunteers, and gives you some other data that shows you the impact that we're having on our community that you all live in. And so you're welcome to take one of these as you leave today. And then Joy, do you have a few?
I just had one more thing I
remarks?
wanted to say. Yes, please take an annual report. You may have one. If you're already in our mailing list, you may have one, and you may choose to pass that along to someone that doesn't know about us. Tracy talked about sharing our story, helping us share our story. You may be a member of a wine club or a book club or a study club that meets regularly. We would love the opportunity to come. We can do this in 10 minutes.
I can do it in 10. It's a stretch, but I can do it.
We can do it in 30. We, as Tracy said, we look for any opportunity to get out and share this story, this very important story. So thank you again for letting us share with you today, and we will be around as you leave. And if you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you again for being here.